Welcome back, everyone. It's Eric from Rare Candy. Here today we are back on PTCGO, taking a look at another deck for the standard format, and today we're going to be looking at Chandelure. And so this is a card I've been, meaning to cover for a while on the channel. Back early on in the Unified Minds format, we had some requests for this, but we were, I think, prioritizing some of the other more hype decks at the time. But I finally had some time, and I was able to finally build this thing and try it out, see how it does. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at here today. And if you guys notice, this list actually will look very similar to the Chandelure list that made Day 2 at Worlds this past year. I think to a lot of people's surprise. I did admittedly change a couple of cards here that I was kind of surprised they weren't playing in their list, most notably the Incineroar, I believe, and also the Magcargo. I will say, however, Magcargo has been a little bit hit or miss. Some games it's been really strong, other games it really hasn't done anything. So I think this is a card potentially you could change to something else if you really want to, but I think the Incineroar is actually really good in this deck, however. So if you guys aren't too familiar with the entire Chandelure deck, I know this might look really weird otherwise, so let's take a look at Chandelure, see what it does first off. So it's stage 2 Pokemon, and has just one single attack, Spirit Burner for a fire energy, does 10 plus 60 more after you discard the top 5 cards of your deck, and does 60 more for each Pokemon you discarded in this way, and then you put any number of fire Pokemon you discard in this way onto your bench. So one thing important to note about this attack, it does not specify basic Pokemon, so yes, that means you can even cheat like other stage 2 Pokemon into play and things like that. So that's what we're going for here. We have the Chandelure. Once we get this up, the whole deck kind of sets itself up from there. Because we have a bunch of other, we can get our other Chandelures in play, we can get some of these other stage 2 Pokemon in play, and that's kind of the whole, gimmick to this deck that we have here. So let's take a look at some of the other backup attackers, that we have. So one of the big ones is going to be Charizard from Team Up. It's going to be, a card I think that has a little bit more of a stable damage output than the Chandelure, and is also still able to take big one-hit knockouts of its own. So Continuous Blaze Ball for 2 fire energy, you discard all fire from this Pokemon, does 50 more for each card you discard in this way. And then its ability, you can put 2 damage counters on it, search your deck for up to 2 fire energies, and attach them to this Pokemon. So I've always been a huge fan of the Team Up Charizard here. This was actually a deck I was really excited about when Team Up was first coming out, and I actually played this for a little bit at locals. I was always a big fan of this card, but it's really good in this deck because you have a really good mid to late game closer that can, even one-shot tag team Pokemon. Like if you use Roaring Resolve, once, that's going to be 130 damage you're going to be hitting. So with your attachment for turn, that's going to be 180 from there. And then if this thing sits on your bench and doesn't get like custom catchered up or something, you can actually do this again and be able to one-shot tag teams, which is really cool. So Charizard, very good attacker in the mid to late game. That's why we're playing 4 copies of this thing, just to make sure we can get them in play as soon as possible. We do have some other random support Pokemon though. We have 2 copies of Blaziken. So it's the one from Dragon Majesty, has that Fire Starter ability, much like the old Blaziken back from Ruby Sapphire. But once during your turn before you attack, you may attach a fire energy from your discard to one of your bench Pokemon. So we're going to be discarding cards with Chandelure. Sometimes that's going to be getting rid of fire energies. Charizard's going to be getting rid of fire energies. So we can use this guy to make sure that we always have our fire energies in play. Fire Stream, honestly not a bad attack either. 90 and then 20 spread to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. But you do have to discard a fire energy in the process. Not too hateful. This can sometimes be good against like one prize decks as an example. But mainly I think for this ability is the reason we're playing it. So we also have 2 copies of Ninetales. It's going to be the one from Team Up. Once during your turn, you may discard 2 fire energies from your hand and then switch your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active. So again, we don't need custom catchers or anything like that in this deck since we have Ninetales, and we can cheat it into play with our Chandelures as well. We have 1 Magcargo for the Smooth Over ability. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for a card, put it on top of your deck. So we can, guarantee a certain Pokemon that we want to get into play with our Chandelures. That's kind of the whole idea here. Let's see, we have 1 copy of Delphox. It's definitely kind of an odd card that people probably never really expected to see make it into a video of ours. But it says once during your turn before you attack, you may leave your opponent's active burn. So this is effectively a plus 20 damage for any of your attacks, which is cool. You're probably not going to use the attack on this thing since it is quite hefty, but basically a free plus 20 damage. And we also have one copy of Incineroar for a similar purpose. So this one, what's in play, your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active, but you can't apply more than one of these abilities at the same time, meaning if you have multiple Incineroars in play, this thing is not going to stack. But if you can get this and the Delphox in play, you effectively have a plus 50 buff on all of your attacks, which is pretty cool. Let's see, so going on to the rest of the deck, there's really not a whole lot of bells and whistles. You're milling a lot of cards from your deck, so you really just want thick counts of all of the cards you want to see. There's not really a great way at running like one of techs and things like that in a deck like this. But looking at our supporters, very unorthodox supporter line. 4 copies of Green's Exploration. So of course you can only play this if you have no Pokemon with abilities in play. But you search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards or reveal them, put them into your hand. So this is going to be there just to kind of help us set up in the early portions of the game. Once we get Chandelure up and running, we really don't need Greens from there. Our deck kind of keeps itself going after our first attack. So we don't even mind not being able to use this card in the mid and late game. But it's going to be there to help us get Duskstone, Pokemon Communications, basically just to make sure we can get a couple of Litwicks down and our Lampent and Chandelure at the beginning of the game. Similarly, we have 4 copies of Bill's Analysis for a similar purpose. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, pick 2 trainer cards you find there. So this is effectively just a way to play 8 copies of Green's Exploration in a deck, essentially. But also in the mid to late game, Bill's is good because we're not limited by the no abilities restriction on Greens. So Bill's going to be a little bit better in the late game, but also still good in the early game as well. Then from there we have 4 copies of Brock's Grit. Definitely a card we don't see too often, much less in a 4 count at that. But you shuffle 6 of any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards from your discard back into your deck. So this is good for a number of reasons. Because we're discarding Pokemon, and as we're discarding them and getting them into play, that is actually going to reduce our Chandelure's damage output. So Brock's Grit is very good at getting those Pokemon back into our deck to make sure our Chandelures can keep a relatively high damage output with this deck. Also, of course, not Chandelure, but Charizard's going to be discarding a lot of resources as well. So being able to reuse all of our fire energies is definitely going to be very, very good as well. And we're playing the thick count just because we're going to be milling cards from our deck. Sometimes we're going to get rid of a Brock's or 2. So this was a count I was initially very skeptical of, but I would not go below a 3 count in this deck at all after getting in some games with it. Let's see, from there we have 4 copies of Pokegear as well, just to make sure we can hit those supporters whenever we need to. Of course, look at the top 7 of our deck, get a supporter card we find there. We have 3 copies of Giant Hearth. So once during each player's turn, they can discard a card from their hand, search their deck for 2 fire energies. Guys are probably plenty familiar with this thing by now in the format. But it's very good. Even though Chandelure is a very low maintenance attacker and we're not playing Welder or anything like that, Giant Hearth is still very, very good with Ninetales in particular, because we can, of course, get 2 fire energies out of deck and immediately use this with Ninetales to bring up one of our opponent's bench Pokemon. Let's see, we also have 4 copies of Pokemon Communication. One of the best and pretty much one of the only forms of generic searching options in the current format, but it's also especially good in a deck like this just because you get to put a Pokemon from your hand back into your deck and get a different Pokemon. So this is very good if we have a stage 2 in our hand that we want to discard. With Chandelure, we can put it back in the deck and increase our odds of being able to discard it with our attack. And then from there we have 4 copies of Duskstone to round out our trainer cards. So if you notice there's no rare candies in the deck, that's because we're playing Duskstone instead. You search your deck for a Mismagius, Honchkrow, Chandelure, or Aegislash, including Pokemon GX versions that evolves from one of your Pokemon play, and then put it on that Pokemon to evolve it. So most importantly though, you can use this card during your first turn or on a Pokemon that was put into play this turn. So on turn 2, we want to evolve Litwick into Lampent and then Duskstone right into Chandelure and be able to start attacking. And then from there, just 10 copies of Fire Energy to round out the list. Not a high count, but again, we can get them back with Brock's Grit. We can get them back with Blaziken as well. Pretty good count, if I do say so. But yeah, guys, that's going to be the deck. Let's head into some games. It will show how Chandelure is going to look in action, okay? Alright, so we will call the coin flip. And we do lose. Kind of a bummer. It's okay, though. as usual with this deck, we are going to take a mulligan. Unfortunately, this is something that does happen a lot with this deck since you only play 4 basics. Okay, that's actually a very solid hand. Okay, so it's going to be Malamar. So I feel like on paper, Malamar probably should beat us. If we can set up Ninetales, then it could be a different story. But I think that's going to be one of the key cards here, is just being able to get Ninetales set up and play around things like Spell Tag and knock out those Malamars. Okay, just a pass. And no support from our opponent, very interesting. So maybe either their hand is really good or it's really bad, or one or the other here. So a communication, we'll put in Ninetales because that is definitely going to be a key card we are going to want to find. We have both of them in deck too, which is very important. We will greens here. We'll go for another greens, and I think a communication to put Charizard back in. That seems pretty good to me. And we can just find a friend. And I guess, well, if our opponent's hand is dead, I think we'll actually just go for the Lampent here. Because they didn't really do much, so I'm kind of assuming we can safely evolve both of these Lampents here this turn. So that's one Malamar. Okay, so maybe our opponent's hand was really good, not really bad here. And a Cynthia, okay. So they still need a way to get 2 energy in discard pile, right? Or they can retreat the Mew. They either need 2 energy in discard pile, like via like Mysterious Treasures, or like a switch would also get them there, like because they could hard retreat Mew, Psychic Recharge on a Giratina, switch. So it looks like they might get themselves there. Did they hit the switch or the Mysterious Treasure? That's the next question. So we're going to see a Psychic Recharge once. Okay, we're just going to see Psi Power. I'm actually definitely okay with that. And at the very least, our opponent did not get down a Spell Tech. That's also very good for us. We'll do that. We'll do that. So that's actually a very good second turn for us. Go for Dust Stone. So we'll greens. Just go for a Bills, since we probably going to hit something with an ability on this turn. And maybe just another Dust Stone, potentially? Sure, that seems okay to me. Actually, probably should have got Giant Heart. Oh, no. We already have one, sorry. Duh. We'll put Charizard back in deck, because that is a card we probably will want to find. We'll just get a Litwick out of the deck. And I think I actually might discard the Litwick here, just to thin. Because we have 2 Chandelures at this point. We're going to start getting Pokemon to play. We don't really need to manually evolve at this point. And I might actually hang on to... Yeah, I might actually hang on to this hand. Because we're only one energy away, I want to kind of give ourselves the flexibility of attaching to something else. Hey, that's actually really good. So we will get both Ninetales and Blaziken. So in case our opponent does custom catcher Ninetales, we have another one. Nice. And we get another Fire Jet. It's actually really good here. So definitely happy with how this hand is turning out. So our opponent is about to start putting on some pressure of their own. Do they find spell tags? That's basically what they're going to want to find at this point, just ways to keep... they're pretty much in their like Tina Malamar loop. They just need to find spell tags for the rest of the game now. Okay, and they're kind of smart putting the spell tag down on the Malamar. But here, this is a situation, like, I almost don't mind just knocking out the Giratina because they don't have a pivot on the following turn. So I think that's actually what I might do. Or maybe I should just commit to the long game and... We definitely attach no matter what, of course. We will Firestarter to Blaziken. Do we actually go for Ninetales? But I kind of want to force our opponent to find the switching cards here. Like, I almost don't mind saving the attack on Ninetales till we need to get around a spell tag. So go for Bills. We'll grab Brox and Pokegear. And I think we're going to try to thin some supporters out of the deck. Oh, not one there. And we will get to another Bill. So just trying to thin these cards out. That way we can hit some Pokemon off of Chandelure here. And yep, we will go for Spirit Burner. 130 exactly. Charizard and Blaziken? Or do we want to keep the bench space open for... that's fine. We'll just go with that. And we get bills off the prizes, not too bad. So we have 3 Litwicks in discard. I think the Chandelure was gotten out by Spirit Burner, so no Litwicks under there. Let's see, does our opponent have the switch? That was the big thing I was kind of wondering about here. Acrobike, okay, it's not a switch. I feel like if they whiff this, that's such a huge like tempo swing in our favor. Because we're already a prize ahead, but getting that extra prize I think will definitely feel a lot more will make us a lot less anxious about how this game is going to go. Do get reset stamped. Unfortunately, this hand is not very good, but we're at the point now where most of the cards that we want to use, and they do have the switch, that's annoying. But luckily, we can kind of live off our board. We have the Blazikens, we have the Charizard, the Ninetales. Just gonna see Jirachi come down. I'm almost tempted to knock out the Jirachi here. Where are they gonna put the damage? So on a Malamar, okay. So, yeah, we will Brock's Grid here. Get that. That. Just to try to get another Chandelure set up as quickly as possible. So we'll Fire Starter. Rolling Resolve for sure. Part of me wants to go after Jirachi in this case. Yeah, I think we're going to do that. We're going to see what happens here. Sure. I really wouldn't mind attacking with Blaziken, actually, the more I think about it. I kind of like the idea of spreading around a little bit here. But, I don't know, we're going to get swung on and get knocked out either way. Yeah, this is fine, I suppose. We get Incineroar. That's actually good, because we can get a Litwick with that. Seems good to me. So how many energy have we gone through? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can Giant Hearth and get energy to bring up a Malamar, or whatever we need to play around this Giratina if possible. And they're going to Lily. Ah, come on. I was really hoping our opponent benched or got out the Jirachi, or like prioritized getting Jirachi because they had like kind of a dead hand. So let's see. Let me read spell tag exactly here. Okay, so unfortunately it will activate even if we get down the... Even if we do the spread damage here. So yeah, we will communication. We will definitely put this thing back. Part of me kind of wants to like bring up this other Malamar and knock that out as well. We'll see what happens. So we will start to power up this Blaziken. So even though we're playing the spell tag, we are like setting up double knockouts of our own, which is why I don't mind this quite as much. One thing that's nice about this whole thing is that our opponent will have to take more damage if they want to keep using Shadow Impact here. And we do hit Lamp off the prize. That's actually super busted. So we really need to make sure our opponent doesn't spread 2 damage counters to this Litwick this turn. So what are they going to do? I mean, we could even like, they're going to swing on us. Well, we would need to top deck an energy, then Giant Hearth for 2 additional energy to bring that Malamar up and get an attack off. Well, actually, no, we can just hard retreat and do that. Let's see, we've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 of our energy so far. I think our opponent might be able to... Oh no, they're going to be 10 damage short of knocking out the Litwick here. Alright, so we will evolve Chandelure. And yeah, this is actually pretty busted because, well, oh, that's 60. I thought that was 80 on each of those. I was like, oh, we are in business. So let's see. We will... Sure, we'll fire starter here. And we will fire starter here. And do we have 2 energies left in deck? Yes, we do. So we are actually going to try to play around this spell tag here. So if we do Malamar... Actually, I think I'm going to do Mimikyu because whenever they use Shout Impact, they're going to be forced to knock out one of their Malamars. And Firestream. So, moment of truth. What do they have? Oh, I guess they have the Guillotine hand. I did forget about that. So they can bench the Guillotine, Shadow Impact, put damage on that, but we still have the Chandelure ready to go. So I feel pretty good about where we're at right now. Yeah, because we can just hard retreat and knock this thing out if they don't knock us out. Okay, so we're going to see them recharge. Again, probably try to start setting up this other Giratina, but I think we just win. Unless we just whiff Pokemon off of the Spirit Burner, I think we should have it. We just have to hope we don't top deck any Pokemon, essentially. Alright, so we are going to Bills. Sure, we'll grab both of those, I suppose. Or actually, if we have energy left, we can just grab the... Just grab the Giant Heart. Because I think we had 1 energy left whenever we used Giant Heart to use the Gusting effect last time. So yeah, we'll get our Chandelure. And yeah, we do have the energy left, so we can just attach. And yeah, we will just go for the old Firestream, and that should be game. Taking 3 prizes, actually, to be specific here. So Chandelure, and actually Blaziken was actually maybe our MVP that game, being able to take the double knockouts for us. And yeah, that's going to be all she wrote. So our opponent actually brought it really close, though, with all the spell tag damage as well. We were just a little bit too far ahead for them. Alright, so let's see. We do in the coin flip. That's definitely good. We will like to go first. Thank you. And we see a fire deck box from our opponent, so maybe a Reshizard deck. They do have the Charizard coin there. Would be pretty funny if this was actually a mirror match. Alright, so this would normally be a decent hand, but we have no Pokemon to communication away. That's the big thing I'm kind of worried about here. Ouch. So, this is Reshizar and they just have Welder. On any Pokemon, they basically win. This situation, maybe Heat Factory would be good, or even Friend Ball. That was a card I was kind of thinking of in this list. So I was saying like the Magcargo in the deck was kind of hit or miss. Maybe we can change that to a Heat Factory going forward. Okay, but this is yeah, this is quite annoying, that's for sure. So I don't want to put down the Giant Hearth just because I don't want to make it even easier for our opponent to knock us out. We basically just have to thin some cards out of deck, just hope we can top deck a Pokemon and that we don't get benched out. That's definitely, I think, one of the biggest issues with this deck is that you just don't have a great way to get additional Pokemon down. That's just kind of the downside to the search options we have in the current format, unfortunately. Actually, Friend Ball wouldn't have even done anything in this situation because they had Jirachi as a start. And they've got the Welder. Do they have another Fire, Energy, and a Switch? So we're probably just going to see them go for a Dedenne, dump their hand, and try to hit what they need. Okay, going to go for Vulpix. Maybe they already have the Dedenne in hand then. Giant Bomb, very interesting. Getting rid of Victini. Hopefully they can whiff the switching option. So they have the energy. Do they have the switching card to go with it? I mean, they've been through a lot of cards already. Haven't played a single one. They have the Jirachi still, so the odds, unfortunately, are not in our favor here. So fingers crossed, do they get it? And they do, of course. That's a bummer. That's unfortunately just one of the downsides of this deck is just a lack of good searching. If we had Nest Ball in the format, this wouldn't have been that big of an issue, though. So unfortunately, we are going to take a pretty quick L on that one, guys. So let's call the coin flip. We do lose, a bit of a bummer. Playing against Doof Vende Hot Dog. I don't know what that means. Well, it looks like they have a Fire Dragon deck box, so maybe this is like Ability Reshizard, because they play like Turtonator and stuff like that. Seems like a safe assumption, at least. And maybe if they are bold enough to put the dragon symbol on there, maybe they're playing like Heavy Turtonator. Okay, his hand is workable. So we can grab Communication and Giant Hearth, potentially. Ideally, our opponent will just put down Giant Hearth for us to begin with. That would be great. Poipole, okay. So maybe Blacephalon GX. That seems like a likely candidate as well, because they play Blacephalon. Yep. And the Dragon type Naganadel GX. Still not sure how to pronounce that thing. Is it Naganadel? Is it Naganadel? Like, I don't know. Feel free to correct me down below in the comment section, guys. Just a weird Pokemon. Definitely, I think one of the cooler Ultra Beasts, though. Most of the Ultra Beasts look like really weird and abstract, but that one actually looks kind of normal. Okay, so that's actually a good top deck, but we do want... they don't really do much. So I'm tempted to even put down a Giant Hearth for them. You know what I mean? But we'll Communication. We'll put Charizard back in the deck. Let's see, grab another Litwick. Let's see, we have a Charizard prized. Got both their damage modifiers. All of our energy. So, do we go for the... Sure. I guess we can go for the... We'll go for the Giant Hearth. That way we can attack. And stay greens for next turn. That can get our Dust Stone from there. So Giant Hearth, we'll get rid of the Pokegear. And find a friend. Just go for another Litwick. So you never know, maybe our opponent had like a really good hand and they just didn't want to like detonate it away until they evolved, or you never know. We'll have to see. So Ultra Conversion. Welder. Okay, so I don't feel bad. I'm glad they had the energy in hand and we didn't help them get even more energy. Like, I'm glad we weren't the reason they were able to welder. I am glad they did get rid of a psychic energy, though. That's pretty good. And they're getting rid of reset stamp. Okay, thank God. That's really good. So we're going to see Mind Blow. That's fine. And so hopefully we can take a knockout right away and start putting on some pressure of our own here. So we will evolve into Lampent, of course. We will go for greens, going for Dust Stone, and probably a Bills for the following turn. Go for Shandy. So we have one energy in there already. We're going to discard this one because we can always get the energy back with Brox at some point. Thin those out, that way we can hit some Pokemon a little bit more easy off the Spirit Burner here. And come on, let's see what we can get. We need 3 Pokemon. Hey, and we got it. Let's see, what do we get here? McCargo, that's actually not too bad. I might actually do that. Sure. I'm working on the assumption we're going to get knocked out on our opponent's next turn, so we're going to go with those. Unfortunately, we don't have a Charizard in play. That's one of the big cards I really would have wanted here, but Pokemon Communication, that will work. And a Bill's Analysis. So our hand's pretty good. Just hopefully we don't get reset stamped and knocked out, because our hand is pretty bad otherwise. We do have the Magcargo, which will help us get certain Pokemon into play as well. So our opponent is on B-string turns. Definitely pressure is on for them to find their B-strings while they can, because we are going to try to take another knockout if possible next turn. And we're going to see Mind Blown. So one thing is nice about Welder in this format for Blacephalon is that even when your opponent is off B-string turns, you still have ways to like scale your damage output. So that is something we will have to watch out for. But nevertheless, it definitely feels a lot better being off of B-string turns. I don't think our opponent even used a single one, did they? No, they did not. So that's actually really good for us. So yes, we will evolve into Chandelure. And I might just even Brock's Grit this turn just to ensure that we can just to try to hit some more Pokemon here. Sure, we'll do that. We'll do seems pretty good. Pokemon Communication, we will get Lampent out. Oops, not Chandelure. We will smooth over. We will get Charizard. I definitely think that's going to be one of the better. So especially if we get Reset Stamp Charizard, it's a really good attacker to have. It can actually one-shot Blacephalons. And... Yep, Spirit Burner. Nice, we'll do that. Delphox can actually help us knock out Heatran if they try to go that route. So I think that's what we're going to do here. We actually probably should have Giant Hearth before we smoothed over because we don't have... Okay, we hit that offer prize, so we did get a little bit lucky there. But we probably should have done that. That way, if they do bump our stadium with, you know, an Ultra Space or Heat Factory, we would have had a follow-up. Because right now we can swing for 130 with Charizard, but we want that extra energy. So if our opponent's attacking us with Blacephalon, I think we just win. I think Heatran definitely would have been the Pokemon to attack us with in this situation. Because if they use Mind Blow and we just set up Charizard, well, I guess they could theoretically bounce our stadium and try to prevent us from having the energy we need to take a knockout with Charizard. But doesn't look that way. So I think we're actually going to take a pretty commanding win on this turn. Just bam, knockout after knockout with this deck. So yep, we'll do that. Actually, we still would have been able to knock out Heatran either way. I forgot. We have our Delphox. Sure, we'll go for Mystical Torch. Just to add insult to injury here. Roaring Resolve. We'll do that. Get rid of... I guess it doesn't matter at this point. We'll get rid of a Charizard. 2 Fire Energy. And we'll hit our opponent with the Well Played. And continues plays ball. And that will be exactly enough. See you guys. Chandelure put the whooping on Blacephalon there. So against GX decks, it seems like this deck performs pretty well against them. Alrighty guys, that's going to be it for the Chandelure deck. Hope you guys did enjoy a look at this thing. It's definitely a lot of fun to play. I'm not sure how competitive it actually is. It definitely has moments where it runs super hot, no pun intended of course. But the damage output's like highly variable, like you're very reliant on, you know, just the luck of Pokemon that you hit off of Spirit Burner. Lucario kind of does help in that regard, but it's still not the most consistent deck. But if you can survive like the first 2 turns of like being benched out, then that could, you know, it takes off. It's a lot of fun to play. But yeah guys, like I said, I hope you did enjoy looking at this deck. Of course, if you did enjoy this content, feel free to like and subscribe, and consider supporting this channel over at patreon.com/rarecandytcg, or by picking up some merch from our online store, rarecandytcg.com. It would mean a lot. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.